Wonderful. Well, thank you all for being here. Welcome to OCI's webinar, Japan's Role in Driving Gas Expansion and Fueling Climate Chaos, Climate Chaos. I'm Lopa Pal, the Development Director at Oil Change International. We are so pleased to see you today, and we are so grateful for all the ways you support the climate justice movement and OCI in particular. So first of all, just thank you so much for that. For the next hour or so, members of OCI staff are going to take you through Japan's role in driving gas expansion both in Asia and the United States. Then we'll take action together and answer any questions you have. Please do put your questions in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end. But first, I want to give you a short overview about OCI. So Oil Change International is a communications and advocacy organization that seeks to expose the true costs of fossil fuels and facilitate the ongoing transition to clean energy. We are data-driven and people-powered. We produce cutting-edge research informed by our deep expertise on the oil and gas industry, and we use that information to support movements on the ground, uplift frontline communities, and move governments and institutions toward a just transition to clean energy. We also focus on building the strength of the movement through cross-cutting movement collaboration, coordination, and strategic thought partnership. We are justice-oriented, supporting and amplifying grassroots campaigns and voices. We combine our research and people power with communications and advocacy, running targeted campaigns to change policy, institutions, and the media narrative. We base our work on some founding principles and analysis. Our groundbreaking Sky's Limit report in 2016 found that potential carbon emissions of fossil fuels in already operating mines and fields would take us above 1.5 degrees Celsius. So we've had this analysis published in a peer-reviewed journal, and we've also had this finding reinforced by the International Energy Agency in its World Energy Outlook publication. And our decades of experience with the oil and gas industry also continues to demonstrate just how much harm oil and gas production brings to the communities and the environment, and how little industry contributes to development. So this has all led to our overarching goal to advance a just and equitable fossil fuel phase out to avoid the worst climate impacts. I mean, many of which we are seeing right now all over the world, but also to protect the communities that have suffered injustices in the face of fossil fuel production. So in order to reach this overarching goal, we focus our work on three main programmatic strategies: transforming the institutional landscape to enable just fossil fuel phase-out policies, challenging the fossil fuel industry and its enablers, and supporting frontline campaigns to stop fossil fuel projects. And nowhere is that work more crucial and timely than in Asia, where OCI works to stop the build-out of new gas infrastructure, both in Asia and globally, which would harm communities and ecosystems, undermine energy security, and worsen the climate crisis. The climate crisis requires shifting from fossil fuels to renewable-based energy systems. Yet, the fossil fuel industry and its political allies are working to prolong their reign under the guise of climate action. So working with NGO partners and frontline communities, our OCI Asia team is committed to halting the expansion of new fossil fuel infrastructure. The Japanese government is our primary target as the world's largest provider of international public finance for gas and LNG terminals. To tell us more about this work, it is my pleasure to welcome members of Oil Change International's Asia team. Asia Program Manager Susanne Wong works with colleagues to stop the build-out of new gas, coal, and oil projects in Asia. Previously, Susanne worked at International Rivers, where she campaigned to pressure the Asian Development Bank to provide compensation for communities affected by dams in Laos, and organized a conference to strengthen the international movement to protect rivers and human rights. Hikmat Soeriatanuwijaya is the Asia Program's Senior Partnership and Outreach Officer. Prior to joining Oil Change International, Hikmat worked for Greenpeace for 14 years in various capacities. He co-founded Arise Indonesia, a social change communication agency, and Trend Asia, an independent civil society organization that accelerates energy transformation and promotes sustainable development throughout Asia. Makiko Arima, senior finance campaigner, works with Japanese and international civil society organization to end Japan's public financing of fossil fuels. Previously, she worked with the Ministry of the Environment of Japan, where she oversaw bilateral environmental cooperation between Japan and partner countries across Asia. Makiko has also worked for the United Nations University's Institute for the Advanced Study of Sustainability. So, to kick us off, please join me in welcoming Susanne Wong.
Thanks so much, Lopa. Yeah, as Lopa said, my name's Susanne, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to share what we're doing in Asia to speed a rapid and just transition to renewable energy. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. And to start off, I thought we'd start off with why we love Japan. There's so many reasons to love Japan. First off, there's the food, sushi, tempura, ramen. There's karaoke, there's gorgeous Mount Fuji and cherry blossoms in the spring. There's Totoro, all the Miyazaki films, anime. The list goes on and on and on. And there's one thing you probably didn't know about Japan, and we call it Japan's dirty little secret. Japan is one of the world's biggest climate villains, and I'm so grateful and privileged to be sharing with Makiko and Hikmat today to tell you why. We'll talk about Japan's role, as Lopa mentioned, in driving gas expansion and fueling climate chaos. I'll talk about Japan and how it's the largest financier of US LNG. Makiko will share about how Japan is driving gas expansion globally. And Hikmat will talk about how Japan is working to derail Asia's energy transition and what groups across Southeast Asia especially are doing to stop it. And so I'm here to tell you about Japan's role in the US. So here's a picture of the Freeport LNG export terminal in Texas. Now, 2 years ago, right between the second and the third tanks, an explosion occurred. They sent a fireball 450 feet high into the sky and released a massive amount of methane. The force from the blast thrust a lifeguard nearby off their perch and a toddler wandering on the nearby beach to fall face first onto a rocky outcropping. The explosion happened after apparently a safety valve was inadvertently left closed. The $14 billion project was shut down for 8 months and has struggled to regain operation ever since. An investigation showed that the owner failed to have enough staff on site to operate the plant safely. And it was like on the order of like 2. Like they're supposed to have 200 staff on site, and they had like something like 95. And those who were there were working 12-hour long shifts. And this is a perfect example of corporations prioritizing profits over environmental protection and people's safety and well-being. And the thing is, this isn't exceptional. As you probably know, communities all along the Texas, Louisiana Gulf Coast and globally are suffering from the impacts of LNG and petrochemical facilities on their health, on their livelihoods and ecosystems, and not to mention the massive climate impacts. I've spoken with some of these activists who are incredible and inspiring from the Gulf, including Manning Rollerson on the left, who was evicted essentially from his land to make way for the project. Ginny on the right, who when there's flaring at the facility, her windows will rattle. Gwen Jones in the middle, who suffered from impacts to health for her family and friends. There's high rates of cancer, respiratory ailments that communities suffer from from both the LNG projects and the petrochem facilities in the region, as well as Travis, Dardar, and Rooster on the right, were shrimpers who've seen shrimp stocks plummet, like their catches have dropped like 90% since these LNG facilities started operating. And these folks have been courageously speaking out and fighting back against LNG development. So what's Japan's role in all of this? As I mentioned, Japan is the biggest financier of US LNG. That project that exploded, Japan provided $3.7 billion for the project for Freeport, another $4.5 billion for Cameron LNG, with plans to finance much more. And if you look at the top private financiers of US LNG, the top three are all Japanese. There's MUFG, Mizuho, and SMBC. These are Japan's top mega banks that have provided $36 billion. They've financed pretty much every operating LNG terminal in the US, with plans to finance much more. And Japanese actors have brought strong diplomatic pressure down on governments like the US whenever they've tried to curtail gas and LNG development. When movements succeeded in pressuring Biden to pause the US LNG export approvals, guess who teamed up with the US Chamber of Commerce to push back? Japan's most powerful business lobby, the Kaidenren. And when Japanese Prime Minister, there was just a transition just in the last day, but when the former Prime Minister came to the US just a few months ago for a very high profile visit, one of his key stops was a photo op with the CEO of Venture Global, who's, as you might know, affectionately called Vulture Global because of the way the company operates. It prioritizes profits over emissions. It prioritizes profits over safety. It's even violated all of its contracts that it used to build and justify and gather finance for the project. They've broken all of those. And this is the company that built the Calcasieu Pass project, which basically its first year of operation was violated its air pollution permits 83% of the time. And when they were called out on it, they basically tried to push for the limits to be increased. And Venture Global's also backing Calcasieu Pass 2 and 2 other LNG projects under development. So what's the key takeaway here? On the next slide, Japan is a major driver of US LNG development. And as we work to stop US LNG build out, it's critical that we put pressure and target Japan. Thanks so much for this opportunity to share today. And now I'll pass it on to my colleague, Makiko Arima. Thanks.
Thanks, Susanne. Hi, everyone. My name is Makiko. And it's really alarming how much Japan is influencing LNG development in the US. I want to zoom out now to show you that affected communities in the US are not alone. What Japan is doing in the US, it's doing across the globe. To start with, Japan is one of the world's top providers of public finance for gas, spending around $4.3 billion on average each year. In this year, it has already spent over $4 billion on gas projects. Japan is also the world's largest providers of international public finance for LNG export capacity, meaning like export terminals. Japan has provided half of the international public financing for all LNG export capacity projects since 2012. And although China has taken the top spot in recent years, historically, Japan has been the largest importer of LNG. So it has poured a lot of time, money, research, and expertise into LNG trading and infrastructure. So while its domestic demand is decreasing, It wants to make use of its experience, its technology, and gas contracts. Japan is cultivating gas demand in other Asian countries for Japanese companies to sell LNG surplus and to construct and operate LNG infrastructure using their technologies. One of the biggest proponents of Japan's public support for gas expansion is the Japan Bank for International Cooperation, or JBIC, which is a wholly state-owned public institution. The numbers that I introduced in the last slide are from OCI's Public Finance for Energy database, which is available online and open to the public. It covers financing from back to 2013. Apparently, JBIC's support for fossil fuels is the third biggest as a financial institution in the entire database, making up around 9% of all fossil finance in the database, which is huge considering it spans over a decade and how many countries and transactions the database covers. This map shows how prevalent JBIC finance gas projects are. It's just a handful of examples out of many, but it shows how JBIC is all along the supply chain, from gas fields in Australia, export terminals in the US, import terminals in the Philippines. JBIC also supports a gas project in Mozambique. On September 26th, Politico's front page reported for the first time that a Mozambican army unit operating out of the Mozambique LNG project site carried out a series of atrocities, including rape, torture, and the murder or disappearance of at least 97 people. Susanne has shared the link to the article in the chat. Please take a look to see what kind of projects JBIC is supporting. And here's a sneak peek at a JBIC focus report and interactive website coming out on October 17th. In efforts coordinated by Friends of the Earth Japan, communities and CSOs have come together to expose the environmental destruction, violation of human and indigenous rights, militarized violence, impacts on livelihoods and public health caused by JBIC's gas projects, featuring community voices from the US, Canada, Mozambique, Bangladesh, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Australia. And OCI will definitely be amplifying this, so please keep your eyes out for that. So how can Japan continue financing gas when there's so much international focus on phasing out fossil fuels? The Japanese government and industry players are using energy security as a reason to justify continued reliance on gas. And here are just two examples again. But on the right, we have the Japanese ambassador to Australia saying, we can't keep the lights on in Tokyo if Australia stops producing gas. And then we have the head of a government-backed think tank in Japan saying, Asia's different. Asia's developing, Asia's growing, Asia's demand for gas will grow. We need gas. But the truth is, Japan doesn't need all this gas, but it has the industry and technology as well as the LNG contracts, and it benefits from promoting gas. It has built its economy based on this fuel. And at the bottom, I have one example of a Nikkei Asia article title, but Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, which has close relations to the government, and it's the world's largest gas turbine maker. So obviously, there's strong interest to continue using gas. And finally, we've been working with partners in the region and the Fossil Free Japan Coalition to get the message out that Japan is a huge climate villain addicted to gas. It doesn't need all this gas. And it's selling gas from countries that it purchased from, like Australia, to other countries. It's derailing the energy transition for corporate profit. Asia is not different. It can and must shift to renewables. I'll pass it on to my colleague Hikmat to speak more about what Japan's doing in Asia and how groups and communities are standing up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Makiko. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Jakarta, Indonesia. It's great to meet all of you. And yes, we are all deserve a just and equitable energy transition future rooted in social and environmental justice. However, particularly in Asia, one of our biggest threat to that future is, as Makiko and Susanne mentioned, is Japan dangerous destruction schemes. So, under the initiative called ASEC, Asia Zero Emissions Community, Japan aggressively promotes fossil-based technologies such as CS, CCUS, ammonia and hydrogen co-firing, and gas, and then claiming them as a solution for achieving carbon neutrality in Asia. While in reality, this is just a dangerous attempt to prolong the use of fossil fuels and protect their corporate profits, while at the same time harming people, harming the planet and the environment, but most importantly, diverting us from the path to a just and equitable energy future. Actually, this is very worrying, particularly for Southeast Asian, which is the least responsible but the most vulnerable to climate crisis. However, we still have hope. The people, the CSOs and community all around Asia are resisting these dangerous schemes. The people made it clear that ASEC schemes are unwelcome. We are telling to our national leaders loud and clear that we demand a comprehensive energy transition rooted in social and environmental justice. However, in many occasions, in many key moments, Japan keep aggressively pushing these dirty distractions to Asia countries. But nevertheless, every time Japan is doing the promotion, the people will stand up and will say to the public, well, that's not actually the case. So these pictures are from the actions and activities all around Asia. And for you who are based in the US, you can actually also join. If you see the two Pokemon pictures holding the banner is actually from US-based activists. Yeah? So I still remember when Japan and ASEAN leaders held the ASEAN and ASEC summit last year, and say to the public and to the policymaker, how good these schemes are for our climate. And the people, I still remember it was in 16 cities, yeah, all around Asia and the US. Actually, that's not the case. That's just a dangerous distraction to our just and equitable energy transition future. I'm gonna end my part with a video. I think this is the recent one when it was August 20 when ASEC, Japan and ASEAN leaders hold the ministerial meetings in Jakarta, Indonesia. And on that meetings, they kind of like dealing with 80 MOUs all around Asia. And most of those MOUs are full of false solutions and harming community and the environment. So on the outside, the civil society organization led by Walhi, Friends of the Earth Indonesia, made clear that we don't want those dangerous destruction. What we want is a just and equitable energy future.
Sebetulnya Asia Zero Emission Community atau ASEC ini kan kelanjutan dari apa yang disebut sebagai strategi GX atau Green Transformation dari pemerintah Jepang yang didorongkan kepada berbagai negara. Nah, pasca kemudian pertemuan bersama pimpinan negara Jepang dengan beberapa negara di Asia Tenggara dan Australia, kemudian dibuatlah semacam kesepakatan bersama yang kemudian disebut sebagai ASEC. Nah, karena dia berasal dari strategi GX, dia masih membawa berbagai problem yang sebetulnya ada di dalam strategi GX. Satu, dia masih memperpanjang penggunaan energi fosil. Itu terlihat dari proyek-proyek kerjasama MOU yang dibangun masih menggunakan teknologi seperti CCUS atau tangkapan karbon, pembakaran bersama dengan biomasa, dengan hidrogen, dengan amonia, dan juga dengan LNG yang semuanya menggunakan energi fosil. Kalaupun dia tidak berbasis energi fosil, solusi yang ditawarkan adalah solusi palsu, solusi yang masih menghasilkan ancaman keselamatan baik kepada lingkungan maupun kepada komunitas dan bisa menghasilkan pelanggaran asasi manusia. Ada problem juga soal akuntabilitas, soal keterbukaan informasi. Publik tidak pernah dikasih tahu proyek-proyek ini seperti apa, bebannya akan seperti apa, dampaknya akan seperti apa.
ASEC ini hanya upaya atau proposal untuk memperpanjang bisnis dan industri fosil yang akan menyebabkan dampak-dampak lanjutan lainnya yang tidak menyelesaikan persoalan krisis iklim dan krisis sosial ekologis, tapi justru akan menambah persoalan-persoalan yang lainnya. Salah satunya concern kami dari KRUHA, Koalisi Rakyat untuk Hak Atas Air, terkait dengan krisis air.
Ketika akhirnya pemerintah dan lembaga negara atau BUMN akhirnya menyetujui pinjaman, sehingga juga itu dibebankan kepada APBN, dibebankan kepada keuangan publik atau keuangan negara.
Thanks so much. And I really appreciate that video and kind of helping bring to life like the movement that the Hikmat and Makiko are helping grow and the opposition that we're working with and partners across Asia, across the globe, working to stop Japan's dirty energy plans. And so what are we doing at OCI? Well, basically we're focused on 5 key strategies. We're mobilizing pressure around key moments, Japan is particularly sensitive to international scrutiny when it's in the international spotlight. So when Japan hosted the G7 summit last year in Hiroshima, we helped organize some actions and op-eds. Secondly, we're growing and supporting movement opposition, as Hikmat spoke about and highlighted in the video. Thirdly, we're teaming up to stop projects like Batangas in the Philippines, the Cameron LNG expansion in the US, and other Japanese-financed fossil fuel projects in Bangladesh, Indonesia, and more. We're also partnering up with groups in our coalition, the Fossil Free Japan Coalition, to target key Japanese corporations and financiers. And lastly, we're working to build a strong narrative and to help expose how Japan's derailing the energy transition in Asia and fueling the climate crisis. And the picture on the right is of a full-page ad we helped take out in the Financial Times before the G7 summit last year. In closing, we invite you to join us. There's 3 opportunities on this slide. The first one is to take action. We invite you to sign this petition urging the Japan Bank for International Cooperation, as Makiko spoke about, one of Japan's biggest fossil financiers, to stop funding overseas fossil fuel projects. The second thing you can do is explore, learn more about the Fossil Free Japan Coalition, which Makiko and I help facilitate and which Hikmat is deeply involved with. And the last thing is you can learn more by checking out these incredibly colorful and actually pretty cute leaflets on Japan's dangerous distractions and the different technologies it's promoting across Asia. So thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're busy people and you've got other things to do. We appreciate you taking the time to spend it with us, and we look forward to your comments and questions.
So thank you so much, Susanne, Makiko, and Hikmat. And I do see that part of the screen here is a little bit blocked. So I am dropping the links to the petition, the sort of more info website, and the leaflet in the chat here, so you can access those that way as well. Oh, thank you so much, Matt. So we do have a couple of questions here. So while you're sort of clicking on those, using those QR codes to take action, to sort of learn more, save the leaflet, share it with people. One of the best things that you all can do for us is really help us get the word out and help let people know what's going on and sort of what actions they can take. And that way we can really grow this movement. So we do have a couple of questions here. So what's the direct or political relationship between Japan's LNG funding in the Gulf and proposals from Taiwan and Foxconn for new projects in Cancer Alley? Is there anyone that can take that?
I can try. I'm not actually aware of how Japan's funding is connected to the kind of Taiwanese-backed projects. But I do know that one thing that Japan is doing is it's also trying to finance, like one of the big technologies that it's trying to back is ammonia co-firing. And so there's a big push for creating new ammonia and hydrogen production facilities, including along the Gulf. And Japan's been deeply involved with the development of some of those, including teaming up with ExxonMobil and to develop a new project in Texas. So that's where Japan's involved. And one thing to kind of tease out too, that's worth mentioning, is that Japan basically sees that it has tied its economic growth to prolonging the use of fossil fuels. It sees that if the renewables transition happens, that it would benefit China and it would harm Japan's economy and companies. And so that's one of the kind of driving reasons why Japan is pushing so hard to get other governments kind of hooked and to prolong the use of fossil fuels. Thanks.
There's Tess had a follow-up question, and then I want to get to another question that's up here. But does that include hydrogen/ammonia projects that are being funded by the IRA as climate solutions?
I think it does. And so I think there's definitely an opportunity to team up together. And we've started to work more closely with groups in the US, including Texas Campaign for the Environment and NRDC and all the Gulf kind of groups, like Better Brazoria and more on this. And there's much more we can do. But yeah, thanks for calling that out.
And then we have a question. Thank you, Julie. Love seeing you at these webinars. So do the citizens of Japan believe the government when it says that LNG is necessary for the health of the economy? Do the people of Indonesia realize how Japanese fossil fuel companies are contributing to global warming? And then one of the things so there's that question, but then also just in case there's anybody on the call who isn't really aware of what LNG or ammonia or these different basically fossil fuels, why they're bad, why they are considered dangerous distractions. So maybe if you could start there, and then I can repeat Julie's question if you need me to.
Thanks, Liba. I can start on the Japan part of the question. And thanks also for asking about LNG, which is natural gas that's been chilled to become liquid so that it's easy to transport. In countries like Japan, especially that are resource poor, and it's also an island nation. So we are heavily dependent on importing resources like gas, and in Japan's case as LNG or liquefied natural gas. And I think I can also address to why it's considered a dangerous distraction and what the people of Japan Can't speak on behalf of everyone, but what I am, from my point of view, what people think about gas. So the Japanese government is promoting it as a transition fuel, and it's also using this narrative that it's much cleaner than coal. So it's a cleaner or a step, above coal on its way to transitioning to clean energy. But the truth is, gas is not clean. It may not emit carbon as much as coal when it's burned, but as Susanne mentioned about the methane explosion in Freeport, it leaks gas or methane along its supply chain, and methane is known as much more intense in its global warming characteristics than carbon. So it's definitely not cleaner than coal, but the government and industry in Japan have done a great job promoting it as a cleaner version of fossil fuel. And there's been a great public resistance towards nuclear. So when it's pitted against, having to restart nuclear energy, which is a huge debate in the government and in this past election as well, within the ruling party, which just elected its new leader. It has a very strong hold that we need energy. Nuclear has been shut down. We're still a little hesitant to restart all the nuclear power. We're not ready for, and the government also does a great, or the industries also do a great job on kind of saying that Japan's not ready to switch to renewables. So they really use gas as like a great transition fuel. It's cleaner, and as I explained, it has built a lot of expertise and contracts in gas. Loop, I think you muted.
Hikmat, do you think you could sort of talk about whether, in general, the people of Indonesia, I know, of course, there's like resistance, there are definitely people fighting against, and there are people aware, but sort of what is the narrative around Japanese fossil fuels, whether or not they're contributing to climate change?
Thank you, Lopa, and thank you, Julie. Unfortunately, the Japan and the all solutions proponent overall, still winning the narrative. So indeed, it will be a lot of work for all of us, and to kind of like balance the narrative and to raise awareness about how dangerous these schemes are to our just and equitable energy transition future. So this year, our partners conducted some audience insight, and yes, you are right that the result is kind of like not many people still aware, on this issue, and particularly in Southeast Asia, not only general public, but even the key audience, including the media, still agree with the Japan promotion, that like CCS is good, the ammonia and hydrogen co-firing is good, and we need gas to transition. And even like country leaders proudly say, oh, this LNG Tanggung will use the CCS technology, so it will reduce our carbon emission. And the media and the public just okay, just agree to that. Not much yet the counter opposition voice on that. So yes, we will keep working on that. With together with CSOs and partners all around Asia. And lastly, and actually, that's the very recent we worked with partners to produce this leaflet, yeah, because there's so low awareness and understanding on how dangerous Japan the dangerous destruction will be. We try to kind of like increase awareness to the general public with the easy to read and easy to understand materials, yeah, about this technology, because I think one of the factor why Japan is winning the narrative right now is they managed to like divert the debate on the urgency of the real solution into a very technical debate. Yeah, so people got lost and okay, let's just agree with Japan on something like that. But yes, hopefully it's a hard work, but hopefully we manage to balance this narrative very soon.
Does anyone have any other questions? Thank you so much, Hikmat. Well, if you do, please feel we do have a few minutes, but also I'm not gonna, we're not gonna keep you here. I do want to sort of make sure we do cover one question though. So, we have the petition, we have, all the information. But, I think the question on a lot of people's minds, and the question that I get, particularly from people in the US, is, how can we in the US, when we have, we're guilty of so much and we have to like stop our own government, how can we sort of like tell other governments what to do? How can we help? What can we do to stop it? And why is it important for us in the US, even though we have all of our own problems to deal with, even though like we are so guilty of so much? Why is it important for us to have a voice in places like Japan? And I know you covered this a little bit in the beginning, Susanne, but would love for some elaboration there.
Sounds good. And I can start. Well, one thing that matters so much is that, well, one, it goes both ways. One is that Japan is, as we talked about, like driving this gas expansion, especially in the US, and is directly like harming communities, ecosystems, and fueling the climate crisis. So I think it's critical that Japan sees like strong opposition to this. And as far as they're kind of concerned in the government or in the media, like upstream gas is clean. And so it's really critical to break that myth and also expose the harm that's being caused by Japanese financed fossil fuel projects. So that's one. And then the second reason that's coming to mind is that the US has just tremendous influence over Japan, especially because of the security agreements after the war. And so because of that, the US government has incredible influence, and also Japan's reputation in the US matters a lot. Particularly for Japanese corporations. Like when we've done organizing, it's always been like critical to try to mobilize folks in the US to like to speak out against Japanese finance projects, whether it's private corporations, private banks, or the government itself. So those are two reasons why it's like just really appreciate your time coming here today and learning more and seeing what you can do to help support this, because it really is Japan's dirty little secret, and we really need to expose it and stop it. Thanks.
So we do actually have one other question that I want to make sure gets answered. So when considering hydrogen as a viable alternative, is there a realization that the water vapor emission is as a potent greenhouse gas as methane? Do people know that?
I can start off and try to answer. Sorry, Lopa, were you going to say something?
No.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think I don't think people know much about hydrogen at all. And especially in Japan, it's definitely branded as clean energy. And there's little discussion, I think, among sort of the general public or any interest really on where the hydrogen comes from or how it's made. So I think, yeah, I don't think people realize that hydrogen is it does contribute to greenhouse gas. And what we always try to point to is that, even green hydrogen, when used in the power sector, why not just use renewables directly?
Thank you so much. Oh, Tess, great. Yeah, that's great. About getting around paywalls. Great. Just want to pause, give folks a chance. Any last questions or comments? Well, then, thank you all so much for taking the time. I know everybody has really busy schedules, so just taking this time to chat with us and allowing us to sort of share with you what's going on in Asia, in Japan, and in the US, and how really, it's all connected. And that's really just what it comes down to. Like, no country, no nation, no one is sort of living in a vacuum. No one is working in a vacuum. We're all connected to one another. And I think it's so just important to understand that. So again, I thank you for coming. I thank all of you for your support. We did record this webinar, and so we will send it around along with the links to the petitions and the information that we shared with you today. So wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful day or evening, and we will see you at the next webinar. Thank you.